What if I will tell you that budget gaming PC doesn't mean to look like an ugly bulky tower on your desktop? Hi everybody, this is Dennis. Let's find out how nice and sleek $300 1080p small form factor gaming PC could look like. YouTube is currently full of videos with an old office machines magically transformed to a gaming rigs. I wouldn't say it is a bad idea, but hey, those dusty office bricks can barely be called a nice addition to your gaming setup. The truth is that you can build your own compact and nicely looking PC. You don't really have to sacrifice looks to save those sweet green. Alright, as a heart of this $300 PC, I chose Intel Xeon E3-1231 v3. This is a very nice and solid 4th generation CPU with the same performance as Core i7-4790 non-K. This Xeon is an 80 watts TDP CPU with 4 cores and 8 threads, 3.4 GHz base and 3.8 GHz boost clocks. Xeons are slightly cheaper than Core series, and I got mine for around $32 to $33. But if you are lucky to have i7-4790 for the same price, don't skip the deal. A choice of motherboard is Z87i Gaming AC from MSI. It has everything is needed for the build, and only M.2 slot is missing for the ultimate setup, which is not crucial in our case. This motherboard has LGA 1150 socket, 5 SATA 3 headers, and supports up to 16 GB 1600 MHz DDR3 memory with overclock. I got this one second hand for $55, and if you can find Z97 chipset motherboard for the same price, grab it. It is worth mentioning that this motherboard is equipped with dual-band Wi-Fi 6 audio ports for USB 3.0 plus 2 USB 2.0 ports and clear BIOS button at the back panel. Overall, this Z87i from MSI is an excellent option if you're looking to downsize your gaming system without sacrificing usability and brute performance. As I will show you later, with the case I have for this build, I am limited by 64mm of clearance for CPU cooler. I ended up buying a second-hand ID Cooling IS50X for less than $10. The brand itself is very underestimated on the market, but in fact their solutions can compete with the sharks of cooling world. This model has a 130 watts claimed TDP, which is more than enough to tame our Xeon or a 4th gen Core i7 of your choice. It is only 57mm high, packed with 5 copper heat pipes, compatible with non-low profile RAM, and has a nice see-through design. As for the RAM, we have a HyperX Fury 16GB kit clocked in at 1600 MHz CL10. This kit comes at barely $25 brand new, and yeah, it's pretty much the best RAM we can use in this build. The sticks are neat and clean, but they will be covered by the cooler, so there is no need to chase the looks of memory modules. I bought this kit brand new, as at the time I was building this PC there was no cheap second-hand RAM on the marketplace around, but you definitely can use cheaper options from Kingston, Crucial, Hynix, Samsung, etc. Crying Out from Thermal Grizzly is a thermal compound of my choice for every build. This is only a $5 game changer as long as thermal's concerned. You can consider using Arctic MX4 as it has almost the same qualities with Crying Out. When tightening the cooler mounts, always be careful. Use an X pattern and don't over-tighten the mounts. Since in my case the cooler is coming with no back plate, there is a risk of cracking the motherboard. We are done with the motherboard, and look how compact and clean it is. So far, the build is not only very budget-friendly, but also pleasing the eye from an aesthetic point of view. And there we go, motherboard is all prepped and ready to be installed inside the case. Now, this build would not be much of a difference compared to any mini to full tower, if not an mini IDX motherboard, low profile cooler, and yeah, the small form factor case. The case I have here is a first revision of a no-name D19 Pro model. It is a tiny case with only a 6.1 liters volume that supports CPU coolers up to 64mm, 188mm long graphic cards, and SFX SFXL power supply units. You can actually go down to 4 or slightly below 4 liters volume with cases like Velka 3 or SKTC A09, but this is just a matter of personal preferences and budget. I got the case as a part of a bundle, and I would count its second-hand value as something slightly below $30. But second revision of this case is available on AliExpress and similar online stores with a $40-ish price tag, PCI Express 3.0 riser cable included. Throw in an extra green and you can get a handle for carrying, a pre-installed generic 400 to 500 watts PSU, and a 4.0 PCIe riser cable. Before we install the motherboard, it is worth mentioning the drive I used in the build. It is a 480 gigs Crucial BX 500 2.5 inches SATA SSD that I have from an old build. Its second-hand price is around $33. As I mentioned before, MSI Z87i Gaming AC does not have an M.2 slot, so our option is old-fashioned SATA drive. Considering the specs, this will not affect the performance of the system. BX500 is a nice entry-level SATA drive, but you can also consider 870, 60, 50, or 840 drives from Samsung, Crucial MX500 or SU800 from Adata. This case supports two 2.5 inches drives or one 3.5 inches HDD if integrated graphics used. It has a nice little bay at the back side of the front panel, and I used it for my SSD. When I built this computer, I did not have an I/O shield at hand, so I used a universal one. However, the required I/O shield had already been ordered for just $5 and was on its way. Installing the motherboard into the case is as simple as it looks. You just need to align the I/O panel with the I/O shield, as well as the holes in the motherboard with the standoffs, and tighten the mounting bolts with a reasonable force. It remains only to plug the riser cable into the PCI Express slot, and we are ready to install the graphics card. Here we are going with the GTX 1050 Ti. This specific card is the Asus Phoenix, which is typically one of those cards which you can actually find second-hand at the price below $70. It is not as impressive as the 1660 Super or 1660 Ti, but to be honest, I don't think it's a terrible GPU for the current build. GTX 1660 Ti is kind of a better option here, but it requires to extend the budget to another $40 more, and this is beyond our goal. The case comes with a pre-installed generic 400 watts power supply unit, but for the peace of mind, I decided to change PSU to a 450 watts SFX Pro model from FSP. Non-modular, black cables, 80+ bronze rating. Plenty for the components that we're working with. You can slide in the power supply unit after the motherboard installation and then screw it in with the provided screws. And from there it's just plugging everything in. Not much of a cable management is needed and can be done. Let's fire this thing up. So this is our old but gold build, and it is pretty much in-game for the LGA 1150 socket. The only one thing that can be considered for the following upgrade is GPU. GTX 1660 Ti would be a nice pairing for our Xeon, and it is definitely a massive jump in performance. Alright, let's look at some stress tests and real performance. With stress testing in Firmark GPU set at 60 degrees Celsius with the room ambient of 25. So max GPU temps in the 50 to 60s, that's pretty good. Good old CSGO. 1080p with everything cranked up to max. About 150 FPS with no problem. League of Legends is also no problem at all. 1080p, max settings, 110 to 150 frames per second. Moving on to a modern and way more demanding titles. Do not look at the CPU usage count as it is broken and doesn't show the real figures. Elden Ring. 1080p as well, but low setting this time. The game is very GPU and CPU dependent at the same time, and that is why FPS floats between 40 and 60 FPS, but it still feels pretty much playable. Most recent big racing title, Forza Horizon 5. 1080p, low preset but stable 60 FPS. And the most demanding game, Hogwarts Legacy. 1080p and low preset, of course. We hit only 30 FPS, but if you are from the same era with me, you could still remember that max refresh rate of 24 to 25 Hz was a thing. Not the best gaming experience, of course, but if you're desperate to play this game, it is possible. Wrapping the things up, I think the final result is great, especially considering the size and cost of the build. A PC like this could help you to save some space on your desk. It can also give a console-like experience with its comparable size, so you could enjoy your favorite games within the comfort of your couch. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Hit like if you like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what do you think about this build. See you in the next one.